Hey, hey, it's that time again. It's been a long time no see. Cast your minds back to Game Jam Prep Week only a few weeks ago, and we had an awesome live stream with our friends over at Xsolla, and we spoke about all things indie spin out, crossplay, a whole bunch of different things. And today we get the sequel, a direct continuation of the things we kicked off a few weeks back. And we're going to be not only speaking a little bit more about crossplay, the fun, the intricacies and the potential of that, but we're going to have a deep dive into some of the games that were made and submitted as part of our exclusive diversifier this year at Global Game Jam 2026. So without further ado, let's introduce this week's guests and kick this whole shebang off. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
It's good to see you all. Are we all here? I feel like we're missing people, or am I've suddenly lost the ability to count. Let's start with a few rounds of introductions. Justin, would you like to go first, my friend?
Sure, I guess. Justin Berenbaum, SVP of Global Industry Relations and Funding at Xsolla. It's a long way to say that I get paid to run around the world and try to help studios succeed, and get to work with governments and all kinds of folks. So I'm always happy to be here, share information. Folks at GDC, if anybody's going to be there, let me know. Happy to say hey at GDC as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Anne-Maria?
I'm Anne-Maria DeMars. I'm in Santa Monica, California. Even though my company is headquartered in Minneapolis, we make educational games in English, Spanish, and indigenous languages, and a platform to make educational games.
Awesome. And you have a beautiful dog loitering behind you, by the way.
Yes, that's Frank Zappa.
Oh, awesome, Dave. Awesome. Gaz, do you want to go next?
Yep, sure. I'm from Wales, UK. And I'm part of Rarebit Studios. I've also got Chaz here, who's also a co-founder of Rarebit Studios. And we've both been in the games industry for 15 plus years, started out making Flash games. And more recently, we're making HTML5 games, and in addition to things like Steam games.
Awesome. And Chaz, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, exactly what Gaz said. Honey, my name's Chaz. Like, we're working together, also a co-founder of Rarebit Studios. And yeah, like Gaz said, we're sort of focusing on web games and things like that at the moment.
Awesome. And Rodrigo.
Hi everyone, I am Rodrigo and I am audio designer for the game El Secreto de Mi Abuela. I am living in Uruguay.
Awesome. Lovely to have you with us. And last but not least, Dave.
Sorry. I'm Dave from Monterrey, Mexico. I don't know if founder of Timo Studio, because really this is the second iteration. We did a lot of web games and stuff back in the day, but this time for this game jam, it's actually my sons, the ones that are participating. And I just kind of mentor them in bits and pieces how to do this stuff, and we're really happy to be sharing our game.
Amazing. So, as we've said, the focus of this week is to take a look at some of the games that were developed as part of the diversifier. So I think it's only fair to speak a little bit about what the diversifier was and what our thinking was behind it. And then we can maybe talk a little bit about some of the game submissions. And then we'll hand over to I guess, all the amazing studios in all various far-flung places of the world and get a look at some of the games that were actually made at the Jam in line with the diversifier. Justin, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of the ethos behind this year's diversifier?
I think, look, and as I think the general ethos is I guess, and this is something I've kind of maybe sensed, is that everybody keeps talking to me because I'm on the funding and investing side so much about, when are things going to normalize? Are we at the new normal? And coming out of DICE and some other stuff, I think I need to warn everybody, there is no new normal. Things are moving so fast and changing so quickly. I don't know if we're ever going to hit a normal in our industry anymore. Between AI, whether you hate it or love it, it's there, between everything else. So I think for me, the diversifier was really about what is happening now, right? Which is cross-platform, cross-play, allow your players to play anywhere, anytime, anyhow they want. The more you give them access and the ability to play, the more likely they are to continue playing. And so this was just really about the future of gaming. I'm going to call it, whether you want to call it the TikTok generation, or now I've heard it referred to as the 6-second generation, where that dopamine hit every 6 seconds. That's going to have to go into a lot of the thinking about how we design stuff. And that hit can come from gameplay, but can also can come from community and from other things. And so, thinking about these philosophies as you build your game, and obviously don't try to throw everything in all at once, but designing with those philosophies was really about trying to future-proof your game development. In particular, if you're starting a game now, even if you're doing a quick, 9-month, 12-month, 18-month development, your audience, by the time you finish, is going to be completely different space than what they were now. And one of the only ways to keep that audience community is to help them foster community. So it was really just about ways to design your development plan in order to future-proof as much as possible how quickly things are changing. And I think that kind of sums it up without a formal talk, speech, whatever. It was just...
No, I think that you said it very eloquently. I guess a follow-up question would be, we've had a few near misses in the past, if you might say, where the future of gaming has been mooted as at one time we were told it was going to be all about just streaming, live stream games, right? And then that kind of died a death, and then it was going to be the reemergence of everything is going to be VR, and then that's kind of like not died, but it's kind of not maybe the great next big thing that we thought it was going to be yet again. Would you say though that the idea that of the old-fashioned trope that we have one kind of console versus another console versus one platform versus another platform, would you say that in the future is going to be less of a thing, and we're all just going to be able to play the kind of games that we want to play all on the same singular kind of platforms? It'll all be just interconnected. Would you say that's a more likely outcome?
I think to an extent. And you brought up a great point. First it was all hail VR, and now it's like, oh my God, Meta's abandoning VR and panic and everything else. And again, we're going to continue to see these trends and or sub-trends. I would argue VR primarily was a subset of a technology being pushed that was really cool, but never really about games per se. And the way people consume VR is limiting. It's hard to play multiplayer, even though I can. But even just putting on a headset in the living room, my family's in the living room, I no longer can pay attention to them. So yeah, I think we're going to continue. Trends are trends. I mean, we see it everywhere. Like society wants to latch on stuff. But I think the trend that hasn't changed, and this almost goes back to the days of board games in your living room with your friends, is a sense of community or micro community, or being able to, I don't know the last time somebody played Monopoly or Sorry by themselves, unless you're playing Monopoly Go online. Like those games just aren't fun without being able to play with your friends or against your friends. So I don't think it's a new trend. I just think the idea of being able to play whatever game I want, whenever I want, wherever I want, and somewhat platform agnostic. Now I have some theories that may or may not be controversial that although there will probably be another Xbox, the question I ask is why. I don't know if there ever needs to be another Xbox. We've seen changes there. Again, I think there'll be one more PlayStation, Switch, and Nintendo will continue. But ultimately, I think we're finding, we talked about the death of PC for the last 30 years, but PC has been the only market that's consistently growing, even through the downturn. And mobile is actually kind of flat last year, but still growing. So I think that access is key, and console hardware is hard to get in a lot of places. Baseline PCs that can play a lot of games now are actually as I don't want to say cheap, as low cost as a lot of phones in places now. So I think basic access on PCs or PC-like devices, tablets, whatever, mobile phones. But again, maybe call me greedy. I don't care where somebody plays my game. I don't care how they play it. I don't care. If I'm making money from somewhere, I'm happy to make money so I can keep making games. And I think that is the trend that people need to focus on. In general, sustainable studios are sexy, right? Staying in business is sexy. And I think that's the trend that won't change in terms of demographics, psychographics, what people are playing, what they're consuming. that will constantly change. But the ability to play when I want, where I want, and potentially with my friends or enemies is not something that's going to change.
Keep your enemies close, as they say, in the same game as you, even better.
Yeah, or just beat them up all the time in the game.
That's a good philosophy to have. Maybe we could solve a few wars like that. I think we play a friendly game of snakes and ladders, or
let's
pick a game and we'll play, right? Well,
anyway,
we had a diversifier, as we've just spoken about, and it was really interesting. We were really surprised and impressed by the general level of quality, the enthusiasm, the energy that we had from the Game Jam community in response to Diversifier, and a whole range of different ideas. And of course, all you guys who are with us today represent some of those amazing ideas. Let's just talk about the Diversifier itself, just for those who are maybe not aware of it. So the Diversifier itself was called Cross Platform Play, and Diversifiers are, of course, additional rules, optional rules that you can choose to add in to your Game Jam experience to make it a little more interesting, a little more spicy here and there. And of course, we had an exclusive Diversifier with our colleagues at Xsolla, which is a really interesting thing, aimed at cross-platform play. And the description to go along with that was, design your game to seamlessly adapt across platforms, PC, web, mobile. Core gameplay stays consistent while the UI and controls adjust based on the device upon which you play. So that's a really great challenge, and we had an amazing response to that. Now, speaking of which, we have a whole bunch of folks waiting very patiently to tell us more about what they did, how you did it, and for good, for bad, for ugly, and all of these different things combined. So I tell you what, let's go with Anne-Maria. Let's see the culmination of what you guys managed in the Game Jam this year. Now, remember, folks, these games were made in 48 hours or less, right? Which is the general time period of the Jam. So it's a really interesting endeavor, very challenging. So we want to hear more about how you guys got on. So how did you get on?
So do you just want to just show the game and talk over it? Was that what you would like?
Yeah, sure, go for it. Let's see the game and tell us about your ethos, and we'll pick up the points as we go. Yeah.
Can you see my screen? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yep, we got you. We can see.
So our company makes educational games, and the reason we wanted this cross-platform is because the great majority of schools in the United States where we are either use Chromebooks or they use iPads. So what we made had to work on both a device with keyboard and with the touch device. And so when we started off, and the other thing, everything except for one part of this game can be played by kids who are blind or sighted. And the purpose of this particular game was to teach division of multi-digit numbers, and also to teach about Aztec history. So we try to teach multiple things at once. The characters we used, because we are not artists, our wonderful artist, Stefan Gladue, contributed some of this. This is actually artwork from him. And we took as much artwork that we already had available and put it together into, like, this game is kind of like Chutes and Ladders, if you ever played that. So you were talking about snakes and ladders. Yeah. So this one, you get a math problem, you get it right, you go up, you get it wrong, you're stuck there. And I speeded up the game, obviously, because we only have a few minutes, and I was not going to test you on your math. But I will tell you that if you use a lot, your ability to solve math problems in your head go way up.
Well, it's scientifically proven, isn't it, that a lot of these games, whether they're memory-based games and or skill-based games, they have a tangible effect on outcomes, your ability to remember, to process, to learn new skills. It's a scientific fact. So yeah, it's great.
And here's the really funny thing. 90% of our games are played by kids in grades 3 through 8, but there's another 10% that are played by what are called silver gamers. This really surprised me. People that just want to stay on top of things mentally, people in their 50s and 60s, and they're interested in learning about the Aztecs, or they just want to, it's the mental version of mall walking.
Interestingly, I've seen a lot of ads popping up recently, just as you doom scroll on social media, as I do occasionally, and some of the new angles of attack with respect to ads. Hey, play this game; it's good for your memory, and it'll help you, with your cognitive skills. So I think it's a lot of developers now are kind of using that angle for traditional games, by the way, that are not necessarily skills based, but they're just simple memory games.
We don't just say that. We actually did a controlled study where in the intervention and control group, and we did a pre and post test and showed that the kids that played the games improved their math scores significantly. So we're specifically looking at improving math. And yeah, it was a challenge to pull it all together over 2 days, but we did.
Did you guys use more than one diversifier? Because you mentioned it was accessible as well. Yeah, so
we did, and our last one, we also were looking at making it accessible to blind children. Now, there's one part there when you click on the mask that is not. So, like everybody, I think we have other things we want to do with the game, and one of them is to circle back, and that part where they go to the mask, give them an option, and do a second thing that kids who are blind can play, like Hangman or tic-tac-toe or one of those things. Last year we did the Global Game Jam. We had a person on our team who was blind. And so that's how we got started doing it. And she was a teacher, and she wanted something that, because a lot of kids who are blind are very behind in math. And so when we go back and add it, every single thing except for that one part can be done with the screen read, a kid using a screen reader. And that's why there's not autoplay on the audio, because if there is, then it interferes with the screen reader. So that's the other thing is we're going to get some kids, and we would like to do it in Spanish and English. So we'll get some kids to do the voices, and then it'll have an audio button where you can just click it. And if they want to hear it, they can.
That was going to be one of my questions, was with respect to the accessibility factors, what are the sort of key challenges that kind of jump out then if you're wanting to make something accessible? You've kind of addressed it slightly. If you use a screen reader, where does that leave you with respect to design decisions?
Yeah, two things. You want to be careful of the autoplay on the text. And the other thing is when you do the image, the alt text, you want to be descriptive, not, this is a dog sitting in a chair asleep or something like that. And it takes more time. And then we had a person that is blind and uses a screen reader, and we will actually have somebody play it with that and then give us feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you do that validation, and you mentioned that you're taking this forward, and you've got a plan to launch this out, right?
Right, because we have about 50 games in our catalog that are already played in schools, so we want to add this to it. Normally, of course, we did it in 2 days, and I think it shows. We might add a little bit more at the beginning. The reason we use 20 is that the Aztec used a base 20 number system. And that's one of the things that teachers teach about. I'm not a history teacher. My background's in math, so we might add a little bit more about history in there. And there's, like everybody, I think Dave Taylor, the guy that worked on Doom, once said that games are never finished, they're just abandoned. And I've never done a game that I felt it has everything in it I want.
Yeah. Well, that's why the jam is 48 hours and not 48 years, because there are some folks that might just use it every month of those 48 years and still not consider themselves done at the end. It's so true. It's so true. And just before we move on, the Aztec theme, one of the things, just as a general comment from me, one of the things we've seen at the jam this year, for folks, I'm sure you're aware now, if you're watching, that the overall theme that we use this year was, of course, Mask, which was a really great theme. I was really happy when that one popped out. We saw a lot of Aztec themes, across a lot of games this year. So it's been maybe not the prevalent one, but it's certainly something that's jumped out quite a lot in terms of the visual styles of lots of games. Quite a lot of lucha libre type style things with the masks as well. I've seen a lot of games like that, which is also really cool. Gaz, do you guys want to go next and show us your game? Thank you, Anne-Marie. That was awesome.
Yeah, sure. I think Chaz is going to demo the game. Maybe we can both talk about it.
I'll put it up. The first thing I just wanted to say, was thanks for inviting us on. And also I just wanted to give a shout out to Geraint Hughes and Creative North, because they sponsored the space where we done the event. So just wanted to make sure that I got that.
And you guys jammed. You were a first-time location this year in Wales, right? So it was awesome to have a new jam site in Wales, which is a great step forward for us, because there's typically only 1 or 2 sites in the country. So to have some new sites is always amazing. So how did you guys get on?
I thought it was great. It's not my first jam, but it was the first jam that I'd done, first of all, with somebody else, because I usually do it solo, and second of all, in person. And it was really nice. We had a group of people in the room, so we were sort of like bouncing ideas off of each other, and it was just a general good kind of social vibe. And it's just a nice way to make a game. Like, it's a lot easier to communicate ideas and say, oh, should we do this or should we do that? And sort of, I thought it was great.
And it was my first jam. And like Charles says, one thing that really stood out is how much the other people in the room who weren't part of our team contributed. Like, so many good ideas. Like, someone came around and said, oh, it'd be really cool if the mask before you launch it, he stretches the ropes back like he's going to launch. And like, of course, it's a good idea. We put it in. And there was 3 or 4 ideas like that, wasn't there? And just being in that environment, everybody was bouncing off each other. Really fun and exciting. I'm hooked now. So it was my first ever one, and I want to do more.
I'm really glad. And by the way, I didn't realize it was your first jam, because we've known each other for quite a long time as well, right? And I didn't know that was your first jam. So that's awesome, by the way.
I've always thought it's a bad idea. Like, I don't want to be staying up all night working on games. I do it as a job all the time, but actually, I get it now. It was really something.
Yeah, they're akin. They're jams for me. It's like it's such an amazing experience, and I always say, half jokingly, but it's also half true, where in life you go through, people remember the birth of their child, you remember your wedding day and points in life, but you also remember your first game jam. And it is true, they are usually quite memorable experiences. And I remember my first jam was like 14 years ago, I think now. So time flies, and so it's amazing that you've had that experience now this year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your game is and what elements revolve around the cross-play way of thinking?
Okay, you should go first. So the gameplay is a little. I don't know if the frame rate's a bit low for everybody, but you can also play it on the link I put in the chat. But yeah, basically, we started making within about 10 minutes of the theme video finishing. We just started messing about, and I just thought, I'm going to try throwing some masks on some guys, and then Chaz came up with the luchador theme, which was brilliant, because then we could sit in a little wrestling ring. But the concept of the game is that you throw masks onto luchadors. If they've already got a red mask on, they're bad guys, you've got to knock their mask off first. And it's just a fun little physics game, and we could put quite a lot into that. We're making it cross-play. I mean, that's something we're always wary of, because we make a lot of web games which need to work using touch and computer. And the first step of that is we just avoid some kinds of gameplay. Like, a platform game doesn't play well on touch, so we kind of stay away from that, which it's just forced us to get more creative with the other kinds of game we can make, which are accessible on multiple formats. But yeah, and like you can see now, I mean, it works good on a mobile phone, in a portrait mobile phone, but also if you play it on a big wide screen, then we've put stuff to just fill the space so it doesn't feel empty and like you're on the wrong format. And yeah, just embracing touch and mouse controls.
Does the experience feel as organic? If I'm playing it on my mobile versus jumping onto a browser, does it still feel like the same game, or is there a bit of a shift?
Yeah, I think it feels the same, and I think it should feel the same too, because the game's been designed to play a certain way. So we've tried to keep it quite consistent, and that's something we do with games a lot, in that we like the idea that someone can find a game on a computer and then go home and play it in bed on their phone later on. And especially with being browser games, they can do that with no friction whatsoever. They don't need to be installing things on multiple devices. So that's part of our day-to-day ethos.
Yeah, and it's a really good ethos to have. I mean, Justin mentioned before This idea that we don't really mind where people or how people are playing our game, so long as they're able to play our game when they want to be able to play our game. And if you sat there in bed and you feel like you want to play that game and you have to get out of bed and go to another room and set up a computer or something like that, it's less conducive to your audience experience, right? So if you can just pull out your phone or whatever it is and just carry on, pick up from where you left off, and enjoy the same experience, that's it's a great way to be thinking it to respect for game design. So your game's got that simplicity about it where it's quite fun. I think it's one of those games where you could probably get really addicted to it quite easily. just one more level.
Well, it's an infinite game as well.
Yeah.
If you play well, you can keep getting masks, and you can. I'm not very good at it. I got game over a minute ago, but I mean, in theory, I think didn't you get to level 150 or something, Gaz?
175 is my best. So if anyone can beat that, do so, and then find us and send us a message because I'd love to see it.
Challenge accepted. You heard that, folks? Write that down. 100. What was it? 175.
Level 175. Yeah.
175. Challenge accepted. Got to be done. And of course, there'll be a large cash prize involved, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, there'll be. We'll give him a plushie. We've got a plushie from one of our previous games. I'll post it anywhere.
That was a joke, by the way.
The first person to beat level 175, I'm going to send this plushie anywhere in the world to them.
Oh.
So, well, that you need to post that on social media. That could be interesting. It could be very expensive in mailing. I'd love to see it, though. That could go viral by itself.
Yeah. You heard it here. It's on the internet, and it stays on the internet. And there you go. Challenge accepted, guys. Yeah. Awesome. Rodrigo, my friend.
Can I? Okay.
Now you guys have a really interesting game as well. I quite like the style.
Yeah. My name is Rodrigo. Before I start, I just want to say that English is not my first language, so I will do my best. This is today. Thank you for patience. I am a sound designer, and today I'm presenting El Secreto de Mi Abuela, my grandmother's secret. We create this game for the Global Game Jam. One very cool thing about our team is that before us didn't know each other before the event. We meet at the
awesome.
Jam and formed a team.
How many people? How many people in your team?
4.
Four.
With 2 programmers, 1 visual artist, and myself as sound designer.
Nice balance, good balanced team.
The theme of the jam was mask. We interpret this theme in a psychological and dark way. The game takes place in the pitch black basement. Only light source. It's a simple lamp illuminated the table. It is a suspenseful full card memory game where the player must find a numerical sequence. But here is the twist. The player can look up from the table when you see an endless hallway and there must entity slowly approaching you. Every time you fail a card, the entity moves faster. So the game becomes a race between your memory and your fear.
I really like the art style as well.
And this is the live version on its itch.io. The game was developed in Unity As the sound designer, my focus was creating sombre and oppressive atmosphere. The audio is essential because I tell the player how close the entity, even before they look up.
Ooh,
It's creepy.
it is creepy.
We original development it for PC, but we also implement joystick support. We add a specific controller mechanics to make the lookup action feel more physical and immersive.
What are you doing?
We want the player to feel tension, the excitation before checking the hallway. Knowing something might be closer than expected. Sorry for my. The idea is find the sequence of numbers. And one interesting part of our development process is that we tested the concept physically before coding it.
Awesome. So you used like paper and did some tabletop testing. That's great.
Yes, we created a real car version in a dark room.
And who was the scary demon then? Was somebody like a scary demon, like walking in the room physically?
One of my teammates acted as the entity, literally
excellent.
walking
What
towards
are
the
you
player.
doing?
This analog experiment helped to us understand pacing, level, and difficulty scale. It allowed us to design the digital experience with more confidence. Right now, the game is available at itch.io here. And our next goal is to bring to experience to mobile platform. We are starting to explore the Google publishing process to reach a wider audience.
Yeah, and I think the style of play lends itself quite well to touchscreen and various other types of modes. And I'd like to think you probably wouldn't lose too much. You could probably do that in VR as well, especially with the motion of looking around and maybe not necessarily knowing which direction the creature might be coming from if it was in VR. I think there's a lot of potential in what you have there. And of course, we've got that awesome style again with the masks and that kind of vibe, cultural vibe. It's been prevalent in many games this year. I really love it. It's amazing.
It's almost like an Inscription vibe, kind of spooky.
Yeah,
3D
definitely,
cards.
definitely. But yeah, thanks, Rodrigo. That's really good, and I really like that you guys did paper prototyping as well, which. As a former university guy, teaching students about how to design games and the importance of paper prototyping and how that can really inform the design process is great. So you guys are doing it the right way, which is good. So gold star for you guys. A+. Dave, would you like to go next? Thanks, Rodrigo. Oh, you're muted again, my friend.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen because it's this presentation and they will kill me if I don't show. Okay. So our game was on Mac. It was a multiplayer game. But let me first talk to you about how is Timo configured right now. Curious enough, I was told in my kids this was kids. They're no longer kids. This was their first game jam, and coincidentally, our first game jam was 10 years ago. So
Oh wow.
it was kind of point. We are a family in this studio. The game was made by my wife, my 4 kids, and their boyfriends. We uh, we wanted a game that was to have that. We wanted a game that had the cross platform as a philosophy. Um, not as much as a feature, but as a design principle for the game, where you wouldn't need install or barriers, and practically if you have a phone, you can play it. No? So the goal was to lower the entry bar so anyone in the room can join. A little behind of how it works, we use Svelte and Rive, Node.js and Socket.io, and Unity and Rive for the visual part also. And I don't know, can you hear that? Or because my son did let me share my screen. So, uh, everything was like done in house. The music, one of my is a composer, so he made the music, the graphics, the characters, the coding of Unity, all of
Awesome.
that.
So everything was completely done. You know.
Yeah. There are not assets in this.
And if it was a family game, how many arguments did you have throughout the course of the jam?
I let them fight, and and I just watch them.
Okay, let's move on.
Can you hear that or not?
No, I don't quite think we're getting the audio through.
Well, he's gonna
See it
kill me
perfectly
anyway.
well.
But that's the actually putting together the video was like, because it's actually you up to 6 players that they're seeing on the screen the game that was built in Unity, and then each phone just on the web they can enter, and there are this like series of questions or things that you have to draw, and there's an imposter, and the idea is to try to catch him. So these animations are done in Rive and then mounted on Unity. There's a lot of, it was only 48 hours, there's a lot of work to be done, and we're still working on it. And we hopefully this month we will be publishing the final version of the game.
Awesome. I really like the visual style. You know the vibe I get. I don't know if you ever played it, but there's a game called Spy versus Spy from sort of back in the 80s into the 90s, with the guy in the trench coat. It's sort of it just, I don't know why, but it reminded me of that when I first saw it.
It was like I think it was a comic, no? Spy versus Spies.
Oh, it may have been. I remember. I think I first encountered it on the original sort of NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. Was the first time I saw it. I think so.
It was a comic from the Math magazine, I think. So the biggest technical challenge of this was like maintaining connection persistent, and the second was making the game feel alive, right? Because it's a text-based game. We wanted to have these little extra micro animations that will not bore the players while they're just typing or waiting for the other ones to input their answers. And the other thing was keeping animations in sync across two different runtimes, the browser and Unity. Some of the memorable moments was that the actual build we presented and the game won locally the camp. Was minutes before the deadline. The building wasn't working, so we finished like 5 minutes.
That's a game jam tradition, though. 5 minutes before you need to submit, everything breaks.
So you should have seen the faces of my son who did the coding in Unity. He was like this before, and then when they announced that we won, he was all happy. So, but somehow it came together, and we submitted, presented, and won. The important part for me was to see them come together and put their heads down and start working, and under 48 hours being able to produce this multiplayer game. And of course I will be on their tail so they can finish it. We already have a website. We probably is on basket.tv. We probably start sharing some updates on the game on there. And another maybe we're going to be trying to do because right now the main game runs on a Unity app. We want to make it also web, so literally anywhere you are with your friends, you can just put up the website, open your phones, and start playing.
Awesome. And you're quite brave going for multiplayer in a game jam. I know a few folks, and if they're watching, they'll be sort of nodding their heads. That I know a few folks, especially in the Wrexham area, who by tradition they only ever make multiplayer games at game jams. That's their thing. They just make a multiplayer game. But those guys are crazy. It takes a certain amount of planning and know-how. So to get one implemented and to the standard you have, is a real challenge, I would say, for a game jam. I think all of the games you see, it's people don't appreciate, how tough it is to really come together. And you guys, you were a family operation in your team, but Rodrigo, for example, he formed his team at the jam, for example, and it can be very difficult to do that. So to produce something that's playable, that has a great vibe and potential in such a short space of time is very challenging. People don't appreciate it, I would say. Yeah, thank you for that. That's awesome. We had a bunch of questions, and I'm not sure if we're seeing some questions being posted in, by the way. A couple of questions that we had that were popping up prior to this was, and Justin, feel free to jump in with some of these answers as well. How can you approach games that involve frequent text entry as part of gameplay? So if you're making a game, Anne-Maria's game, for example, a great example where the users have got to enter text quite frequently, maybe to text game or text event. I saw as part of the Diversifier, there was at least one fully fledged text adventure game that had been made, for example. Are there any particular kind of things that jump out that you might want to think about? And maybe we start with Justin, but obviously feel free to jump in if anyone has an opinion on it. Anne-Maria, for example, you've got a game.
Yeah, Anne-Maria's probably got way more experience than I have. I do know that as an investor, we've had to walk away from a couple games that were too text heavy. One was like a typing game. One was another. And this was 5-6 years ago now. So things are a little bit better. And this is where, and I hope this is not the 4-letter F word here, but AI can certainly help with some of this stuff. But just the cost of localization and culturalization of the game, it was roughly 100,000 words to complete, and that was in English. To localize and culturalize that, even for 5 languages, was, it was almost as much, if not more, than the development of the game itself. I applaud anybody doing that, and there's certainly a genre and fit for that. But you obviously know that you're going to limit yourself potentially, not just in language, but keyboard setup, everything else. So I always just encourage people to be very careful about how much input you're forcing somebody to do while they play a game. There's definitely a great niche for that. I just know if you're looking for outside investment, almost everybody I know is going to count how much it's going to cost them to try to bring this to other territories, and it's going to cause a kind of a cold sweat. Anybody who does the endeavor, kudos. Anybody making educational stuff, amazing. I'm hoping this is where I think AI and some other things may be able to help with some of this in the future moving forward to make that more accessible and easier to do. So anybody who's doing it, my hat's off, because I don't know how you do it. It's hard enough to just make a regular game with a mouse and keyboard inputs or a controller input, and especially in a jam in 48 hours. So if you're trying to do text input, typing, like, hats off. I'll buy you a beer next time I see you, or a non-alcoholic beverage.
And it's actually a really interesting point about the localization factor on text-heavy games, because I think that's probably a really good example of the unforeseen hurdle that maybe people don't think about when they first kind of brainstorming ideas. And maybe a text adventure sounds great because it sounds like it's something simple, and then you just don't realize, man, if I want to translate this into some Chinese dialect, or pan-European, or across the whole world, you've got some real problems on your hands with respect to localization and the costs that you may not have thought about. So it's actually a really good point.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be the business buzzkill, but
what people don't think about too is we make games in math, right? So that should be easy to translate. But in Latin America, instead of a comma, they use a period. So one of the things we try to do, and you might have noticed it in the game there's one of the things we're going to change is we try to make it so the answers and the questions are less than 1,000. And when we have games that use decimals, that's an issue. But one thing about educational games that we know is, sad to say, very few are played on phones. That kids don't use their data to get educated. They use it to get on TikTok and stuff like that. So we know that the vast majority of kids are going to be playing on either a tablet or a Chromebook or something like that. But even then, yes, Android phones, I'm sorry, the bane of my life, even though we love Start on Android, because they have those tiny little screens. So we try to really minimize the amount of texture entry, that it's a couple of numbers. If we have a game you have to log in, then that's unavoidable. But otherwise, as you notice, there's a thing you click on the screen if you're doing a memory game or you're just typing in a couple of numbers, because as Justin said, that becomes a barrier for some people. And the smaller device it is, the more of a hassle it is. So we try to minimize that and only do it when it's really necessary. We have a hangman game that's not shown there. Again, we try to have letters on the screen that you can touch on.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I'm interested to see the statistics on that as well, like educational, edutainment, however you want to describe it, and mobile platform activity, and maybe some of the reasons as to why that is. Would you say it's really kids, if you like, want to spend their data on having fun and rather than learning things?
The market for K through 3 for mobile, the market for educational games on mobile is K through 3 because their parents are picking it and giving it to them. When you get middle school like us, they're doing other things. They're playing their games. They're playing educational games when their teacher tells them to.
And that makes perfect sense, because both of my boys are under, or 6 years old or under, and I pick all the things that they play for obvious reasons, right? So yeah. One of the reasons why Snakes and Ladders is stuck in my brain is my 4-year-old discovered the joys of Snakes and Ladders very recently. Now it's mandatory that we must play at least one game a day, otherwise the world will end. So
I was going to say, your games as well, they unblocked in schools, which will be a reason why people will be playing it on the school computers, because quite often games websites are blocked in schools.
Something that I was just bringing up, I was thinking about, you're talking about text input on sort of mobile games and things like that, is like, what do you think about Duolingo? Because that does it quite well. It's like a really good way of gamifying text input. Any thoughts on that?
I've used Duolingo a few times with the different types of games. I've seen a few games, and what my only real foray into edutainment, if you, to use a lack of a better phrase, was a game designed to teach people Welsh. And the way that we approached it was we did it by stealth. So it looked like a seemingly fun sort of farm sim type game, but actually all of the actions, the objects, and the things you were doing in the game were all using Welsh language. So we did some testing before and testing afterwards, and then we discovered that lots of people started to understand what the Welsh word is for carrot and all these sort of things, because they knew the word, but they didn't realize they were being cheated into learning another language. But that's maybe another story for another way forward in terms of game design by stealth, I guess. But I've seen lots of examples of them done in different ways, language especially, but that maths, as we've seen with Anna Maria's game. I know there's lots of different ways you could approach it, and I guess the whole play as you walk kind of thing, if you're typing, it's not quite so easy, and you've got to kind of stop and concentrate on what you're doing a little bit more. I guess there are just sort of different barriers. Another question that we had was, what mistakes should you avoid whilst starting out in cross-platform development? So what would be then, would you say, some of the absolute noob mistakes that people make? Justin, you want to go first?
I think we talked a little bit about Diversifer, trying to do too much too soon. I think, as I think all developers do, all creatives, they want to try to do everything in their head and put it into the game. I'm a big believer in start small and grow when you can hit your deadlines and everything. So I think trying to do too much too soon, I think not thinking about the design philosophy in the way of mostly UX, UI, and player behavior when you're trying to build cross-platform or multiplayer, or just cross-play enabled. And it could be as simple as a label, allowing my, if I'm playing on mobile or doing something on mobile, making sure that counts in the PC game and vice versa, so it's not wasted effort. I think sometimes we think that cross-platform means that I have to be able to play immediately or go on both platforms, do everything I do on mobile on the PC. I think so. I think it's just overreaching and overscoping, which is inherent, is probably the single biggest mistake I see when people are first starting out.
I would also parody that and say it's also probably the biggest noob game jammer mistake as well.
Well, it's not just noobs, by the way. I mean,
the
number of studios that I've seen struggling now because they overscope stuff in 2021, 2022 when they thought money was free. And overscope stuff, and then the money ran out. And by the way, these are like 5 people who spun out of Riot. These are 20 people this isn't, for noobs or people even first-time studios. I think everybody gets over their skis a little bit. They get excited, and all of a sudden they're overreaching, overscoping. Some of this is the financing side of the business. The VC model doesn't go well with the indie heart model. And so the VCs often push for bigger, better, everything's got to be multiplayer, everything's got to be co-op, everything's got to be live service. And I'm like, no, the F it doesn't. Please stop this. Right. So I think that it goes across all things. It's not just a new mistake, but this is something that, especially in a jam, could kill you.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of trend, people following the trend, right? You get the one breakout success, and then everyone thinks, well, that's the way they got to go now to be successful in the industry, and then you have a big, influx of failed titles because the market isn't big enough to support them all. Yeah, it's super important. I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts on what mistakes that people tend to kind of make, jam and or cross-platform play otherwise.
I think for educational games, a big mistake people make is they want to impress their friends and do this super cool game in Unity and not realize that for most educational games, it needs to run on crappy Wi-Fi on the cheapest hardware, because that's what school's got.
Mm-hmm. Or as one of my teachers used to say when I was young, in a wet field on a dark night. And if you can run it then, you're going places.
Talking about text earlier, I'd say that you don't need to put, there's a lot of places you don't need to put text where people put it. Like you don't need to write the word play if you've got a button which is clearly looks like a play button. So you can make yourself life a little bit easier just by not putting too much stuff which is going to need changing and updating all over the place.
Yeah, international symbols and language and so forth. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Intuitive design, yeah, for sure.
Well, and then that makes it way easier when you do it in multiple languages, right? Like the less text that you have, the fewer things you need to have in 2 languages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also think that that's what's cool about that game jam. That talking about the overscoping things, it forces you to go bare bones to have a working prototype and not go too crazy on ideas. And once you have that done and polished, then you can start thinking of expanding to other platforms and stuff. But yeah, having like a bare bone basic version of your game before going to, for example, ourselves, we wanted to do the web version, but we say no. Let's start with Unity and have 6 players playing on their phone and get that working, and then we can see.
Yeah, the law of minimum viable concept, right, and go from there. And that's why I'm a huge fan of game jams and always have been, because they really teach you about that process of iteration. Make something work, iterate it. Don't go crazy, and understand that the deadline is tight, time is short, money is non-existent because it's a game jam, and you're lucky if there's some free pizza, and we've got to make something in 48 hours, right? And that's what we're going to do. And you guys, by the way, super impressed with everything that we've seen here, because they're really good examples of what you can achieve when you have the right kind of mindset. And I also think that if you've jammed a few times before, or you're working with folks that have jammed a few times before, I think that does help as well, because they'll have that kind of at least basic understanding that this minimum viable concept issue is like really important, and they'll help rein the craziness in a little bit, at least when you get going. Another question that we had was, what engines or tools do you guys think provide the best systems for cross-platform development? So I guess I would translate that into maybe 2 ways of thinking. In general, what works, and are there any platforms that tend to work quite naturally together, so it makes it easier for you to think cross-platform like?
Is this open question?
Mm-hmm. Go for it. Open. Totally open.
So I think Kaz and I spoke about this a little bit as well, and I think for us, like, we use Construct 3, because it's a really good way to make something quick. My first jam was with Game Maker, and I'd done it to see what I knew about Game Maker. I put a time lapse on YouTube, and if I watch it now, half of it's me just like looking up things in the manual. But Construct's got a lot of really cool built-in things, like you can add a physics behavior to an object, and it instantly applies a box 2D physics. And now, like, I've seen people that use, I mean, I'm not having a go at uni or anything, but I've seen people that, like, if you wanted to recreate that in Unity, that's going to take you a lot more time to sort of set those systems up and get the program running. And we were kind of, when we were going to do a jam, we just sort of hit the ground running. And the cool thing is the touch controller in Construct as well can mimic the mouse. So if you put the command in to touch something, it also works for the mouse. So it instantly hits screens and like mouse input.
You've got that cross-platform compatibility. Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I mean, like, Gaz introduced me to Construct. I mean, I came to it from Game Maker, but like, even now I'm developing a solo project in Construct, which I intend to hopefully at some point get on consoles. It just seems like it can, like, it might not be the best for consoles. We reckon Godot's probably pretty good for that, but for game jams, I think Construct is like the tool, personally.
Yeah, and Justin, in your experience, what are there any particularly like power platforms that you would say that tend to be like the go-to destinations for a lot of developers when they're thinking about crossplay or not?
Well, I mean, I think the easy, and again, I'm not a designer. I'm going to caution everybody's mileage may vary. It's very easy for me to speak about what I think is easy, but I know nothing is easy in game development. But I think the easiest stuff that I've seen really comes from kind of PC to mobile and back. In terms of just flexibility, ability, little bit less headache with first party stuff, although obviously Apple, Google have their own requirements. But it seems to be a little easier, a little less restrictive. And now with, the Apple Epic ruling and some other stuff, you can certainly build mobile stuff outside the platform initially and then go onto the platform, or vice versa. And so there's a lot more freedom. The idea of web shops for mobile and web shops for PC tied into mobile and PC makes that much easier. Obviously, going cross-platform between consoles is definitely heavy lifting. It can be done, and there's a lot of people who can do it. There's engines and there's shortcuts now to do it, but that is a significant heavy lifting, even when I'm evaluating games in terms of cost of development, and they're looking at doing that, and they will always put like PC and consoles, and I'm always, are you prepared to do consoles? How this? And if there's a cross-platform or multiplayer element, the question is, have you done it before? Have you worked with the T's and C's and the requirements of these platforms? They have everything, even down to simple security requirements, what data you're allowed to not allow share. So it gets real complex really fast. Not that you can't do it, but that's my biggest thing. And the easiest I've seen is generally PC to mobile. Or I guess you can say web, right? Because PC, mobile, and web are all kind of distinct, but they also operate similarly. But I'd love to hear from some studios on what they've found, the ones who've done it, what's been easier or not easier, because they're the ones actually in the trenches. I'm sitting here on Mount Olympus throwing thunderbolts.
Anyone else? Oh, sorry, go for it.
Well, we actually built our own platform because we've done so many educational games, not only the ones that we distribute, but white label. And ours is all built in HTML and JavaScript. And the reason we did is we're focused on specific things like educational games that are single player, because all the things Justin said about multiplayer add on to that you're working with minors. So even though there's a lot of ask for multiplayer games, we don't do that. So we created our own kind of, I don't know if I can get sued for copyright, saying it's like Legos for educational games, where there's a block that's a Caves and Ladders game, and there's a block that's a Magic Terms game, and then we just edit the config file and snap them together. So that's how we do it.
That makes perfect sense, right? That's a common go-to way of thinking, and you build your own platform. You're not reliant, and your own T's and C's are a little bit easier to deal with because you've got less worries than licensing in a big third-party engine, and for the deal makers of this world, those sort of things are quite nice as well, because it helps. It's one less person or entity to pay when the money starts coming in further down the line. So those are all really good.
We started looking at using AI for that, using some kind of prompting system, and we looked at Gemini and Vertex AI, and we switched and wrote all the code ourselves. And when Gemini cost per token doubled, we pat ourselves on the back for being smart.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? You become reliant on a tool, and then suddenly that tool is now super expensive for whatever reason. And it's buyer beware, as the old saying goes.
What, did somebody just say runtime charge? Oh, wait, I shouldn't have said that out loud. I'm sorry.
Now, let's not go there.
Yeah,
else?
I think that part is pretty important. I know it can be like difficult to think this way, but I've been long enough not only doing games, but design and development and stuff, and I've seen programs come and go. So it's pretty important for me to be platform agnostic. Don't marry with Unity or Real or whatever. Start from the thinking phase of your game. Start thinking on designing it. On this could work in Unity. This could be working on web. And I know it takes work and obviously distributed in different platforms. But starting from there, you're not shooting yourself on the foot in things that it only works with Unity. I cannot port it to something else.
I think it's a really good
tools agnostic. It's important.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think we see time and again that people, designers, will marry themselves into a certain way of thinking. And you tend to maybe follow the trends a little bit too much if you embed yourself too much into one ecosystem, and it should really be about what is it I want to achieve, what are my design goals, who is this product aimed at, and then how best might I access those people with this design. And games engines in the end are simply tools, right? Like Carpenter has a bunch of tools,
and also we get like caught in the mental game that because we like games and we like doing games, it should be that way. But as you say, we should be thinking on the product, on the end consumer, and that's the goal. Not what we had on our heads of this game will be cool because I love doing this game.
Yeah. I think we mentioned in the previous webinar. I'm sure I recall we were speaking about the difference, if you like, the two mindsets, the difference between the hobbyist and the professional. So the hobbyist mindset is that you don't really care who's going to play that game in the end because you're doing it for yourself and it's fun and I just want to make this game. And then when you're the professional and you want to pay your bills with the games that you make, you have to have a different mindset. And I think what we're alluding to is that I think too many people, even professionals, are developing games with the hobbyist mindset and not the other way around. And I think it can be a real problem.
I think it's easy to do, right? I think because any piece of art has so much of the creator in them, right? That's absolutely. And I did when I was a DJ, right? Like, even though I was using other people's music, how I put that together, what I did with it, how I screwed up when I was live and then covered it up. It's all part of that process. And I think and I overreached as a DJ when I was starting out, right? Like I would try to do mixes that I had no ability to do and screw them up. And there's nothing worse than screwing up a mix in front of 200 people that are trying to dance. I likened to launching a game for the first time to the public a little bit like that. Was that Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And the first time you let consumers play your game is generally getting punched in the mouth. It's an old Patton quote that says, no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. I don't want to call our players enemies, but sometimes it feels like they are. So I think, yes. And I think that the thing that all of us forget, and I have a wife that's been doing research for 20 something years, that the minute we start making something, we're actually no longer our customer. Even though we like to think we are, whether or not, I'm a single player, story driven, high quality, 5-hour experience guy. The minute I start working on my own game that's like that, though, I'm not really my consumer because I know intent, the consumer does not. And so you always have to remember when you're designing and building this stuff that what you're intending the consumer to experience and what they may be experiencing are differently because you know exactly what you want them to do, how you want them to do it, what you want them to accomplish. They don't. So one of the hardest things to do is step back from that and then pretend you know absolutely nothing about what you just built and see if you can break it yourself.
Exactly. And then if you add the cross-platform play enigma on top of that, where keeping that consistency, of gameplay and intent across multiple platforms with possibly different interfaces, you've got a whole new level of challenge to maintain that, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if who said this or if it's actually been said. I'm certainly not going to say it as eloquent, but the fact that any game ever ships and works is kind of a small miracle.
Our first game ever, with the very first time it was played in schools, it was a Unity game on Windows, and it was great. It had this path that you were supposed to go down to the village where you went into the teepee, and the very first kid that played it veered off the path and fell off the end of the world. And we said, why did you do that? Did you not see the arrows going that way? And he said, yeah, but I wanted to see what would happen. So we added in invisible barriers, and if you went off that way, it said, sorry, you're dead, a bear killed you. It was the very first time a kid played it live.
Well, we talked about text adventure. It goes back to, you were killed by dysentery, right? Oregon Trail. So like it's.
Oh yeah.
Do you know this?
Go for it.
Sorry. I was going to say this anecdote from Richard Garriott, who made Ultima. I think it's an Ars Technica interview on YouTube about, and he's saying that they designed this whole ecosystem that players were supposed to engage in, and they could hunt these animals and use their meat and sell it and stuff. And they ended up, like, within 24 hours, all the players wiped out the entire ecosystem because they killed all the animals and everything, and it just completely collapsed the economy that they had planned for it.
Yep. Players going to do stuff like that. I was just going to say the difference, if you like, between Halo Combat Evolved and then Halo 2 wasn't just the double double guns. It was the introduction of the skulls and the things where, in crazy places you wouldn't normally get to without being able to grenade jump yourself there. Because in the first game, of course, everyone started breaking it by grenade jumping themselves and taking advantage of the physics and stuff. So yeah, it's emergent gameplay, as they say, which is really cool. Yeah. Now, speaking of emergence, the end of our show has emerged from the ashes of our talk, because we could go all night talking about this sort of stuff because it's so interesting, and I hope that you guys have been following along have really enjoyed it. A couple of things just to tell you about. Next week, of course, is GDC week. So if you're into Game Jam and you're into GDC and you put those two things together, well, you can find us on the show floor at GDC. We are, of course, running the first ever Game Jam at GDC, commencing this coming Sunday, by the way. So if you're there, feel free to pop in. And we will have, of course, our Game Jam Expo area as well on the show floor. Once the full expo commences. So if you want to say hello to myself and other members of the GGJ team, Maria, of course, will be there, and we'll be happy to see you guys. And of course, we have another session planned with Xsolla next week on the Thursday, I believe. So there'll be more to come from us and our colleagues at Xsolla. Justin, I believe, are you joining us for that one? Do we know, or am I putting you on the spot?
I don't know if I'm joining or not. I don't know if I've officially been invited. I am probably.
Well, you are now. I'm officially inviting you. You're welcome to join.
Depending on my schedule, although here's a rookie mistake that even somebody who's been doing this for 30 years made. I forgot that GDC has their own meeting platform.
Yeah.
So I have my direct platform. I have Meet to Match, and then I just realized I had 3 or 4 meetings in GDC, which I had not been using, that now conflict with my other meetings. So. Yeah, I'm happy to attend, but it's a long way to say that I have no idea what my schedule looks like, but send me the info. I would love to. It's always fun.
Yeah. You need like 3 of you. That's what you need, right?
Nobody wants that. Nobody, especially my wife. Nobody.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I'm sure your wife loves you very much, mate. I'm sure she did. On that note, let's bring this crazy live show to an end. It's been amazing having you guys with us. I really hope to have you all back at some point again, and we'll pick up where we left off. Congratulations on making so many amazing games in such a short space of time, which is exactly what Game Jam is all about. As always, don't forget to like, share, and help us spread the good work of Game Jam and all the things that we do. And our Game Jam would not exist without you, the amazing Game Jam community. And with that in mind, we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now. Bye.